painting today. I was going to do it Saturday or Sunday, but I'm golden open acrylics. I put them on so thick it wasn't dry until today. So here we are. So just picking out some brushes so I don't have to fiddle with them too much later on. And so I did the back of this painting. I did, the majority of this painting with the golden open acrylics and kind of using some oil painting techniques. And I like the way this turned out, and I'm really hoping I don't ruin it. But I want to put some trees in here, and I figured I would try mixing the two. So I did the background with the golden open. So I'm going to do the foreground with some Winsor & Newton, just regular thick body acrylics. We're going to see how that goes. Well, Winsor & Newton and this Master's Touch, but just regular thick body acrylic. So burn umber. Ultramarine blue. Cadmium yellow. This is the pale hue. So a little bit closer to like a lemon color. And then just titanium white. All right. Now the question is, what do I want to tackle first? I could go... So in my reference, I've got a tree here, and a tree here, and two trees here, and then a big tree that's sitting right here. And the biggest tree is right here. This one's up close, and then this one's the second closest, and then the ones over here are kind of farther back. I think I want to start here, sort of arbitrarily. That's just where it's my gut feeling. Actually, let me get around. And a liner too. So the color in these are going to be kind of black and then sort of a really pale green. I think I'm just going to use the round, even though it's going to be kind of obnoxious to mix the colors with it. So when I paint with acrylic, I like to wet the brush first to kind of help distribute some of the paint a little bit easier. It helps the paint flow a little bit. You don't want to like soak the brush, so I'll kind of like, you know, get a little bit of it off. But I do want the bristles to be sort of wet. So I'm going to mix the dark color first, which is just going to basically be black. I'm going to try to make it a sort of green black. I'm going to stick with that as the main black, and then I'm going to try to green some of it up over here. Just a little bit of blue and yellow in there. It's like just a slightly green black. Okay, but I'm going to go into this black first. Might actually get some more of that mixed up here. Okay, I got a good bit of that. I actually think I'm going to use, well, let's see. So I want it to be set right up in here. Let's see what I want to do here. I'm just going to get the big limbs in with this round, and then I'll get some of the smaller ones in with the liner, I think. Okay, that's actually it for the black on that tree. So while I've got it out, I'm going to throw it over here onto this tree. This is only going to be about half of this tree over here, but since I've already got the black mixed up, I figured I'd just throw it in. I think that tree's kind of curving off. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and throw in another one right in here, I think. I throw a little bit more water in here. Get my paint flowing. I'm gonna have to mix up some more of that black. It's kind of a crazy looking tree. All right, so I'm gonna wipe some of the paint off of this round, and then I'm gonna switch to my liner, I think. and put some branches on there. Wow. Let's see. Let's actually just switch to this green and throw some of this green on here. It's not quite light enough. No, I didn't want brown. Why did I do that? I want blue, green, more blue, more yellow. Like I said green earlier, I meant yellow. Okay. A little bit of white in there. It's too much white. Still too much white. Okay. That's kind of the pale green I'm looking at. That's going to be like the lightest color on that background tree, I think. Let me mix in some of that. Oh, that turned out more blue than I wanted. Throw a little more yellow in there. Okay. I don't have to get these perfectly right on the first try because it's going to dry and I can paint another layer. Just trying to get some more of that. All right, let's try some of that. I'm definitely going to need some darker colors in there, but I guess I'm putting on the highlights first here. It's okay. I need to switch to the liner because this brush is bigger than I want it to be. But before I do that, I'm going to throw some of this over in here. Trying to get some kind of interesting texture on that tree. I'm going to come in with some more black later and detail it, but that's what we got for now. Okay, and I'm going to just give myself a little bit of point of reference here. The other trees go on right here, and then we're going to put another tree. Actually, let's try and put that tree in now. It's probably a bit too light of a color, but we can fix it up with another layer, I think. I'll put some branches in there and make that better. Okay. I'll wash this round brush off. So in this hand, I've just been like kind of wiping my brushes clean. I kind of usually try to keep my left hand full of a paper towel so I can control how much water and paint is in the brush. That's off camera, that's why I'm telling you that. I'm trying to show you my process here, that's all. Okay, so I'm going to the liner now. I'm going to start making more branches. I'm going to wet the liner a little bit for the reasons I stated previously. I think I need a little bit of a more brown mixture with some of that green. to make a slightly darker, less saturated one. I'm throwing a little bit of water in there so it'll flow a little bit easier. Oh boy, now I've done it. Threw way too much blue in there. It's okay. And throw some little green marks in there. And I've got this crazy green going on. Okay, I need to mix up some more black, so I'm just going to do that. Liner is not really the ideal. Not really the ideal mixing brush, but it's what's in my hand, so it's getting used. Kind of want this more on the blue side, like I was saying earlier. Okay, and get some water in there. All right, I need to start finishing some of these branches up a little more pointy. Here's one. Okay, now I think I need some of this green. I need to mix like a dark green. That's why I left that. I think that's a little bit too saturated, so I'm going to throw a little bit of brown in that to desaturate it just a little bit, and then a little bit of white to lighten it back up. It's a little bit, that's way more gray than I wanted it. It's a lot of yellow. Yeah, that's better. A little more yellow. A little more brown now. I think that'll do it. Some water in there. It's still not quite dark enough. A little darker, I think. Just a little darker. Okay, I think that's better. Okay. A couple more of those I need to put in there. It's looking very like, I don't know how else to describe it other than making the hand motion. Needs some fellers in the middle. I'm happy to oblige him. I also want to try to get some branches in there that look like he's sort of crossing over in front of the tree or sort of sideways. Because right now it sort of looks two-dimensional. I think I'm going to tackle these trees kind of one at a time. I think that's the plan. Okay, let's get one of these guys going on in here. Some kind of weird shaped things. Get a little more water here so it flows a little easier. Okay. And now I think I need to go back into my black paint. Okay. I think I want to try to make something that looks like it's crossing behind. Oh, like that. I feel like this tree is a little bit short too. The branches don't match the trunk. Let's fix that now. So this is gonna have a shadow, so we're gonna throw some grass and shadow in there to make it a little bit shorter. Now it looks like it's got some bushes in front of it or something. Try to get some dry brushed stuff going on in there. All right. When I put the highlights on, I can fix some of that too. Cover some of that up. I think I want to get one going like so. I have to remember why I put this here, so when I put the highlights on, I remember to straighten him up. Alright, it's looking a bit less contrived now. Just needs some highlights, I think. Alright, I'm gonna try to get a lot of the paint off of my brush, and I'm gonna throw some like background pieces in there. Okay, I'm done touching that for the moment. I'm gonna let him dry before I do anything else to him. Okay, let's focus on this guy here for a minute. I need more black. That's blue. Okay. I finished this branch here. I'll try and get this one all the way almost to the other tree. But almost all the way on it. Okay. Need more water in there, I think. Having trouble getting this paint to flow nice. Okay, so I think I'm gonna make this branch cross over. This looks fire, says I need more caffeine. Well, thank you, sir. I ain't finished yet. It's the first big one I did in a long time, so I'm hoping I get it right. So then I've got the confidence to do more big ones, because I used to only do big paintings because basically what I first did was just went to the store and bought like a humongous value pack of I wonder what dishonest art looks like. What I mean by honest is I just mean I see a lot of Instagram clips and stuff of people that they show you like, all right, I'm just starting, and they snap their fingers and it's done. It's like that picture of the owl where they draw like 2 circles and then the next scene is finish drawing the owl. So you start with 2 circles and then draw the rest of the owl. I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to show you the whole thing, start to finish. You see everything. If you tune in for the live streams, you can ask questions about what I'm doing. And if I fail epically and make an awful painting, you get to see that too. Or if I make a masterpiece and then decide I'm going to change something and ruin it, it's recorded for everyone to see. Because believe me, that happens all the time. You make one little change because you think it's going to be good, and then like your whole painting just sort of tanks after that. I made this branch here too funky. Respect. I'm living up to my name then, I suppose. Okay. Let's see. Do I want to do anything else with that one? I think I got to put some more stuff up here. So why painting? Why not other mediums of drawing? Well, I do some drawing too. But the reason I like to paint as opposed to drawing is I like the imprecision of painting, because I can't do realism. I just can't. I have a lot of trouble with details, so trying to do sort of impressionistic work is a lot more relaxing to me than trying to draw precisely. But I have done some graphite art, and I liked it, but I kind of have an impressionistic approach to it. I sort of approach any kind of art like, where are you putting your darks, where are you putting your lights, and if it's a painting, there's colors too, but for the most part it's darks and lights, contrast. That's the kind of thing that I understand about painting. I'm not the kind of person that can sit down and paint every whisker on a cat, and make it look really realistic. Though I do respect people that can do that. I think that's great. It's just not something that I enjoy doing or care to do. I like the kind of loose and focusing more on the sort of colors and how they make you feel. I'm attracted to colorful paintings, or specific colors in paintings, I should say, rather than, you know, realism versus impressionistic. Do I do it for the relaxing nature of it? I suppose I do. Part of the reason I started painting, I only started about a year ago, so I haven't been painting for very long. I think I started in July. I did my first painting in July of last year. But I used to watch a lot of TV, and I used to watch a lot of movies, and I just don't like the movies that come out nowadays. It seems like in the past, like maybe 5 or 10 years, the movies have just gotten really derivative and boring. So I just sort of decided I needed a hobby that wasn't watching movies. So that's what this is. This is tricky. Trying not to make this branch look too gnarly, but I do want it to look kind of interesting. I think I'm just going to add a bunch to the top of it. Add one of these, crossover over here. So before I started the YouTube and the Instagram and all that stuff, it was sort of just, I would try to do maybe a painting or two every month. But I started to really pick up the pace. And so I decided that I was going to try to document some of the learning process, because there's a couple of things with painting that clicked for me. And, you know, honestly, I think a lot of people make it look harder than it really is. Because when I first started painting, I thought it was really daunting. And I started the way I'm sure a lot of people start, with trying to do Bob Ross paintings. And Bob Ross's paintings are like magic. I don't know how he does it, because I can't do Bob Ross paintings. And he's, you know, he tries to make paintings easy. So I looked at, you know, other methods of painting, and I found sort of more impressionistic style. And I found them to be a lot easier than Bob Ross. And the thing that was also appealing about Impressionism is that the goal of it is to be able to make an impression of anything. So you sit down, you know, maybe you're on a hike or something, and you bring your sketch pad out, and you can make a quick sketch of your surroundings. That's what Impressionism is. But what Bob Ross's paintings are, they're sort of an exercise in luck, it seems to me. You know, you get his special Bob Ross brushes, and you tap into the special Bob Ross paint, and then you paint some happy little clouds. And sometimes your clouds turn out surreal and amazing. And other times it looks like you slapped the canvas with a paintbrush full of paint, and it just doesn't have any magic. So I wanted something a little bit more consistent. So I sort of picked up the Impressionist philosophy to painting, which is basically just take the colors from what you see, you know, take a reference photo, or if you're painting from life, look at what's, you know, look at what you're seeing, look at the colors that you're seeing, and just think about it like a 2D grid, and just put the colors where they go. Start with the lights, and then just kind of take an incremental approach. And if you want more detail, you can sit down and add more detail, because with detail sort of comes with time. The more time you spend on a painting, the more stuff is going to be in it. So if you want a really detailed painting, just spend a lot of time adding details. But sort of the Impressionist philosophy is not do that, kind of avoid details and just get essence of a scene, and I find that really appealing because I sort of have a novelty-seeking brain. I think I don't like to do the same thing over and over again. So I used to play guitar a lot when I was in high school, a long time ago. And the thing that really bothered me about playing guitar was when you're playing guitar, when you practice guitar, you're practicing the same songs over and over again. And the thing about painting that's nice is you don't have to paint the same painting 100 times. You can do one painting, and if it turns out bad, okay, move on, do a new painting. Turns out good, okay, you did a great painting. You can do the same painting again if you want to, but you don't have to practice the same painting in order to learn how to paint. You can paint all new things all the time and learn by doing. And so I find that really appealing because every new painting is sort of an adventure. You can approach them different ways. I mean, if you just watch the videos that I've got on YouTube, I kind of plainly say that I'm just trying things. I'm like, oh, I saw this. Okay, I'm trying it. Like the Golden Open acrylics. That's what got me into the Golden Open acrylics. Is I saw somebody that said, hey, acrylic paintings dry too fast, so they made this cool thing called Golden Open. Try it. So I did. Now I need to think of what I want to do next. I think I want to mess with this tree. I think that's what I want to do. After I indulge something here. This tree here is still bothering me a little bit. He needs some fixing. Let's see. I think I want to throw one in here. All right. Yeah, all right. So I'm going to try, I'm going to kind of get a mid-tone in between this dark green and this black. Throw this here and define some of this tree a little bit more. Give him something that looks like now it needs to be 2 trees because well, maybe I can make that work. Yeah, I recommend trying some impressionism, especially if you get bored easy. If you just want to do art that is sort of a spur of the moment, like you just get inspired by something that you see, it's definitely a really, I don't like to use buzzwords, but liberating, I guess, is one way that you could put it. Because, say you're on a hike or something and you've got a sketchbook and a pen with you, if you learn how to capture scenes sort of quickly and simply, and you see something that you really like that inspires you, you can do that. That's not really how things tend to go for me. I tend to have ideas of things that I want to paint. I tend to think, I really want to do a spring scene that's at night, maybe with some fireflies or something. And so I'll play around with some AI reference images, and I'll look online and see if I can find a photo that is something that I want. And then I try to come up with a reference photo that I can paint. So if it's fall, for example, I'll try to find something with some nice red and yellow and orange leaves. Try to paint it. Okay, let's see. The thing about graphite art, though, if you are interested in sketching, there's kind of an interesting technique that I've used that's sort of more based on layering different hardnesses of pencil because, let me read what you got here. I code random programs for fun. Yeah, I'm the kind of person that sort of doesn't stick to one particular hobby. Anyway, what I was saying about graphite art that might be interesting is it's a lot easier than painting to pick up for me, I think, or at least it was for me. My first graphite drawing was pretty successful. And really the reason is because when you're painting, it's sort of an exercise in getting the colors right. But with graphite art, you only have two colors to worry about. You can only make a spot lighter or darker. So if something looks wrong, you only have two ways to adjust it. And so that can be kind of simple. I mean, obviously, making graphite art takes some practice and some intuition. What am I doing trying to paint this big tree with this tiny brush? I'm swapping. I think we're going to go with a filbert, sort of a smallish filbert. What was I saying? Graphite art is maybe something that's going to be a little bit easier to pick up than painting. And actually, the first painting that I learned how to do, and I really recommend it if you're interested in painting, because it doesn't require a lot of supplies, number one. And number two, it's almost idiot-proof, which I appreciate that, is it's a Bob Ross painting called Golden Rays of Sunshine. And basically, it's just a black and white painting. But it's really easy to do. I mean, he does it with a sponge brush and a paper towel. And so you can do the whole painting with two colors, black and white, and a sponge brush and a paper towel. And so I highly recommend, if you're interested in painting, to just try that one. And if I ever do like more scripted tutorials, that's probably the first thing I'm going to do, or something like that, where you don't have to worry about mixing colors properly. I'm just going to basically say, hey, start with black and white and just try to paint something really specific. And so in that painting, you're painting trees like this, sort of. And these trees, I mean, anybody can paint these. It just takes a little bit of practice. It doesn't even require a steady hand. In fact, I would say not having a steady hand is maybe a benefit. I'm struggling right now with how big I want this tree to be. I'm also struggling with the amount of paint that this is. I'm going to kill this entire tube of brown and blue at this point. Yeah, so that's kind of a funny question. Not having a steady hand. I think in impressionistic paintings, the best way to get really loose is to hold your brush back as far as you can and just, let the brushwork kind of make interesting shapes for you. Because paintings look really contrived a lot of the time because they're too symmetrical because the human brain sort of gravitates towards symmetry, and you can't make things symmetrical when you don't have control. And so that's part of the reason why I like painting, is a lot of times you're not in control of what's happening. The paint's just kind of going to do what it's going to do, especially with watercolor paintings. I mean, there are watercolor masters out there that can control every little thing that happens. But for little old me, a lot of things that happen when I'm doing watercolor paintings are entirely unexpected and sometimes very bad. But sometimes they do really interesting things. I need to switch brushes here before I wreck this. Yeah, I would definitely say if you don't have a steady hand, you can still be a painter. Because I don't, well, I shouldn't say that. Some days I have a steady hand. But usually when I'm painting, like I say, I'm painting with the brush kind of far back. Unless you're using like a liner brush and trying to make fine details or something. All right, I'm going to switch to a round now. I'm going to try and get some of this paint off of my brush. Sort of twisting it will get a lot of paint off of it, and then give it the old pinch. That way you don't have to switch out your water so much if a lot of your paint ends up in the paper towel. And difference between Impressionism and Realism. I'm not an expert. I didn't go to college for art or anything like that. I was just an engineer that decided I was going to paint one day. So, I could be telling you wrong, but my impression of Impressionism, that was unintended. But my understanding is realism is you're trying to make it look real. Impressionism is you're trying to give the impression of a scene. So if you look up famous impressionists like Monet or someone like John Singer Sargent, his paintings don't look realistic unless you look at them from a distance. But when you look at them up close, they're more focused on interesting colors and brushwork. And so I think a quick Google search can probably tell you more, because just seeing the difference between two kinds of paintings is more evident when you see different kinds of paintings. But for example, like I didn't paint blades of grass here. I painted green brush strokes. I just left the brush marks in. If I was trying to go for a more realistic look, I would be trying to make it look like there were individual blades of grass in my painting, rather than what I've done here, which is these are just kind of streaky looking brush marks. Let me see if I can do this without making a mess. I didn't paint any blades of grass. That's just me like making brush marks that look kind of streaky. But it's sort of, if you kind of step back, it sort of looks like there's grass there. And that's kind of what Impressionism is about. What separates good Impressionism from kind of weak Impressionism, I would say that's a matter of taste, but in my opinion, it's the colors. Impressionism with boring colors just looks like poor painting. I mean, it just looks like you did a messy painting. But if you switch to a round, by the way, if you look at like Monet paintings, for example, some of them are breathtaking, but also really simple. And it's just a matter of, he used colors that are just phenomenal. He just had really interesting colors, and they do a lot of things with broken colors, which is putting sort of two colors next to each other that sort of blend in your brain. But when you look at it up close, you can see all these tiny little spots of very vibrant looking colors. And that's just not really something you see in realism. So I sort of have a taste for Impressionist paintings. Okay, now I need to switch off of black. Okay, if I may ask, kind of engineering do I do? Right now I'm a software engineer, but my degree is in mechatronics. So I've sort of done a little bit of everything. But right now I'm a software engineer. This is just sort of a side thing. Okay, I'm going to mix up kind of some reddish browns. I'll put those down here, I think. Let me bust out my filbert again. So I don't have to fight mixing with a round brush. Okay, so I want some red browns, so I'm going to throw some red in there. That's looking pretty good. I like that color. Okay, a little more red. Might have overdone it there. Oh yeah, I overdid it. Let's go back on that. Get some more brown in there. Oh, I think I overdid it with the brown that time. I'm having trouble with this one. It's right on the edge of being what I want it. I think it's still too red. Okay, that's about what I want. That's too much paint. I'm gonna try to get this a little bit more dry brushy. Not going full on dry brush, but just a little bit. Okay. A little bit of that up there. I think I'm gonna make another branch kind of up here going that way. And then I think I'm gonna go ahead and get a guy going in here. Let's see. Also, I want to do. Guess I want one down in here. Any point were you passionate about software engineering? Yeah, so I'm the kind of person that just likes to solve problems. So the reason that I studied mechatronics is because when I was in high school, I was on a robotics team and I just couldn't pick what I liked best. I mean, I really liked doing mechanical designs and I really liked doing electrical designs and I liked programming. And so that felt like the field for me. And so my first job was as a systems engineer, and I couldn't find work in my area doing that with the same company. So they hired me on closer to where I lived at the time. And so they hired me on to do software engineering because they had positions available doing that. So that's kind of how that happened. But I really like doing software engineering still. I haven't lost my passion for it. And mainly the reason that I like it is because it's very sort of straightforward in the sense that they give me a problem to solve, and it's usually a very specific problem, you know, design something that does this, and then I design it and do it, and then it's done. And so I like that aspect of things where it's sort of, it's broken down into small constituent parts, and they just give you a part to do, and you do that part, and you go home, and then you paint, if you're me. So I've liked that a lot. It's been definitely sort of a blessing that I was able to find a job that I'm not, every time I go to work, I'm not dreading it. And then, then I paint. That's what I do. This tree is looking real two-dimensional. I'm gonna have to do some work on him. But I think it's about time to bust the liner out. Let me get a little more of this red around here. Put that on pretty thick. Oh, not that thick. Thanks for the questions. I've been doing this mostly alone for a little while, so I appreciate company. If I ever went through burnout, oh yeah. Not with painting, with college. When I was in college, they call it senioritis or whatever, but my last year in college, it was all I could do to get my work done, really it was. So my last year of college, I was, there was a semester, my college experience was kind of interesting because I started and I was really having a hard time my first year because I'm just not really wired for schoolwork. So got a lot of the ADHD kind of thing. So just sitting down and doing my homework had always, it's still a problem for me today. Sometimes I sit down and I blink and 4 hours have gone by and I haven't done anything just because when my brain doesn't want to do something, it shuts down. And so my first couple of years of college, I really kind of struggled with that. But I almost failed out, and I had to take a class that was a class on failure because I went to a liberal arts school, and even they had a class for teaching people how to fail properly. And I didn't get anything out of that class. But that class saved my GPA because it was a free A. And so the semester right after that class, I basically was a straight A student for 2 or 3 semesters after that. And then I was able to get through with a reasonable GPA. But yeah, burnout is something that now that I'm an adult, I'm sort of, I say now that I'm an adult, now that I'm a working person, I'm not in college anymore. So going through burnout when you're in college is fine because you're going to be out of college in, a couple of years. But when you're working a job, if you get burned out of your job, your options are take a vacation or try to find a new job. So you really got to be careful with the whole concept of burnout because, to be honest with you, I think a lot of it is psychological, and I think there's sort of some groupthink that comes along with it because when you're talking to all your friends in college or whatever, everybody's burnt out. But I think the fact that everybody's burnt out is part of the reason why everybody's burnt out, If you have the willpower to keep working, you're going to keep working whether or not you feel the burnout or not. And it's a psychological thing. I mean, burnout is in your head, I think. And so managing burnout in the real, the job market is something I'm still working on. My current advice would be try painting. It's a good time. Yeah, burnout in college was definitely a big problem for me. It's definitely a big problem. you're still a student and struggling with burnout, my advice would be to try and get yourself into a position where you can't fail. So work as hard as you can and get to that point where even if you get a 30 on that test that you just couldn't make yourself study for, you're still going to get an A in the class. That's the best thing I can tell you to do. The thing that kills you in college, at least when I was doing it, was missing out on the little points, stuff like homework. And, if there was any kind of extra credit, just do it. Just do it. That way, when you get that 30 on the test, it takes a lot of the pressure off of it. Because there was people in college that I was hanging out with that, they would only do well on the tests and they just wouldn't do the homework. And for some people that works. That's dangerous, man, because if you fail that test, sometimes there are classes where they only have 2 or 3 tests. If you fail one, you're done. And so for me, it just took a lot of the stress off. Just being able to put my grades into the grade calculator and it say, you couldn't fail if you tried. You'd have to get a negative 200% on the final exam to fail. And that's a good feeling. It might not be a great feeling when you walk out of that final exam and you got spanked. But it's definitely a good feeling to know that even if you got spanked, you're still going to make it out. So that would be my advice for a student is try to get yourself into a position where you can't fail. That's what I tried to do. Let me tell you, I failed some tests. I failed some tests big time. Yeah, sure, I'm over here solving the world's problems while I'm painting an ugly tree. I'm gonna have to add some more colors on this tree too. All right, now I gotta think. What do I want to do now? I gotta do a lot of stuff up here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Keep with the black for now. Just gonna paint some more branches and let stuff happen. Because my ideas right now are not flowing. Just gonna paint stuff and see what happens. This tree's looking a little unnatural. You know what I need? It needs a branch kind of in the foreground, in the forefront of that tree. So I need to mix up some highlights and just put some highlights on this bad boy. We're gonna do that, boldly I say, with this green paint that is completely dried on the palette, so we need more green. And we need to make it not so blue. Some nice green there. You know, throw a little bit of white in there. See what that looks like. Yeah. Let's try it. It's not as green as I wanted it to be, actually. That's interesting. I desaturated it too much. Shall have to resaturate it. I guess that's something I could say is I just sort of talk about saturation, desaturation when I'm doing these. What I mean by that is how intense the color is. That's what I mean by that. Let's see. Yeah, got to keep the ego in check, I guess. It's I sort of was in that position too. Um, I was since I said earlier I was on a robotics team, so when I came into college, I already knew how to program. I already knew how to, I already knew how to design stuff. So engineering school, and to this day, I still think engineering school is kind of a scam. That's my opinion. It's way too expensive for what you actually get. I mean, basically, I could have been an engineer 6 years ago and done what I do now. I could have skipped all that school and I would have been okay. Because most of what they teach you in school is math that math that I don't understand, honestly. If I ever had to design something that had differential equations in it, I'd be in trouble. Because quite frankly, differential equations just don't make that much sense to me. But a lot of things in engineering are common sense based. You know, it's about having good ideas a lot of the time and just being able to think clearly about problems and solve them. So I had a lot of, I guess, common sense, but not a lot of math knowledge. And college definitely helped me with some math knowledge. I won't deny that. But to be honest with you, it's all gone. I've completely forgotten almost everything that they taught me in college. There are a couple things I picked up, but for the most part, I was just trying to get through it. So it's probably not good advice to give people, hey, don't go to college. I don't think that's good advice because, frankly, you need the piece of paper that has your name on it. But boy, I paid an awful lot of money for that piece of paper, and I had to put up with a lot of garbage. That really didn't help me. Yeah, math's not my thing. There were some people I knew that their math skills were stellar, but not me. Adding some brown into this green to desaturate it a little bit. I mean, obviously, you got to be able to do some math to be an engineer, but I don't know that you got to be doing the kind of math that they had me doing even my first year of college. In my first year, I took Calc 1, 2, and 3, I want to say. And man, if they gave me a Calc 3 problem right now, I don't think I could do it. I'd be in trouble. I'd be in big trouble. So I definitely sympathize. But the advice that was given to me while I was complaining about it, and people were trying to give me advice. What they told me was just play the game. Everything is a game. And in college, the game is you got to have a GPA above a certain point, and if you keep your GPA above a certain point, nothing else matters. And the other advice that I got was just learn all that you can. You're surrounded by academics, so try and try and leech some of that. So some of the stuff I picked up was, I used to think philosophy was stupid, and I used to think art was stupid. And I went to college, and they forced me to take the art classes and the philosophy classes, and let me tell you, they were stupid. But in a couple of those classes, they showed me some things that I wouldn't have seen. I wouldn't have looked up on my own. And that definitely has helped me in my conversational skills, because there's certain things in philosophy and art and all that that people like to talk about. People don't want to talk about how machines work all the time, which is something I enjoy talking about, and a lot of my friends enjoy talking about. But if you go to a dinner party with your cousins or something, you start explaining to them how an internal combustion engine works, they're going to think you're a little weird. So the engineers got to kind of figure out something else to talk about. Same thing with the computer scientists. Nobody wants to talk about C++, best practices. Nobody wants to talk about how efficient your Python code is, and nobody wants to talk about your Java virtual machine. But people do tend to want to talk about politics, and politics is sort of downstream from philosophy, and being well-read never hurt anybody. Not saying that I'm well-read, but I don't like Java. I will take the last bit. Yeah, let me tell you, I right now I do a lot of C++ and Python, and I used to do Java when I was in college. I took a couple of Java classes, and man, Python is so nice. Python just does what you want it to do. You say do this, and it just does it. There's no arguments. You don't have to fight with the syntax and the segmentation faults and all the nonsense. You just tell it to add two numbers together, and it just knows what you're talking about. If I could use Python for everything, boy, I would. Unfortunately, that's not how things work. I liked Java when I was doing it. I think in schools they should really teach people how to do C++, though. That's my opinion. Yeah, the problem with Python is the abstraction, though. I mean, sometimes it just does things that you just would never expect it to do. So some problems it's not great for. But the convenience of it makes up for a lot of that. Because it really is. I mean, even if you've never coded anything in your life, you can read Python code. It's pretty simple. I made a disaster. I'm gonna scrub some of that off. I'm missing the golden opens, man. I did half this painting in golden open, and it was so nice to just put colors down. It was so buttery smooth. Now I'm gonna have to play with all the layering that you gotta do with regular acrylics. Gives you a lot of control if you like to layer, but man, you gotta paint the same thing a couple times sometimes. Make it do its thing. Yeah, weird thing is, when I was in college, I actually learned assembly first. My first programming class was in assembly, which I really think it should be backwards. I think, I'm sorry, I think they should do it the other way, where you learn Python first, and then you get down into the weeds where you're looking at machine code and doing, you're doing binary stuff with registers. I really think I should have started that way. I mean, obviously, I had already had some programming experience, so I didn't really have a problem with that. But a lot of people in my class, man, let me tell you, I was helping a lot of folks with their homework in that assembly class. Assembly is really fascinating, but I mean, it's ridiculous. Trying to program anything in assembly is a nightmare. And when you get to the point, if you're an embedded programmer or something where you're looking at registers and that kind of thing, you're still not down to the assembly level for the most part. You're still in the C realm. So I really don't even know why they teach that. I guess so that you've got a little bit more insight on how flip-flops and all that stuff works. Because, I mean, I think they should probably do some Verilog and stuff like that in those classes too. They should do some more hardware design embedded stuff in software engineering classes. But that's sort of just my opinion. Because when I was a systems engineer, I had to work with some of that. And just knowing, what some of that hardware description stuff is, that can really help you. Okay, switching to around, because I'm going to try and make some branches come in from over here somewhere. Let's see what I'm talking about here in a sec. Looking a little too brown for my taste. All right, I'm going to try and start skinny with this and then make it fatter if I don't like it. Kind of struggling with what I want to do on this one. Because this tree is looking a little like kind of empty up here. And I sort of railroaded myself with that, making that branch a little bit thinner than I wanted it. So I'm trying to get some branches from out of town over here. Spice things up a little bit. That branch looks funny. Kind of want to leave it like that. It's got that like this thing going on. Not really sure what that's about. For this one, yeah, I have a reference photo. I'm using an AI generated reference for this. I should really try to put it on the screen, but I don't know where I would put it. Let me bust it out. Just give you a glimpse of what it looks like. It's really low res, so I mean, it's not really a painting, but that's kind of what it looks like. And I'm just sort of just trying to use it as a general idea. I'm not really copying it. I haven't looked at it since I started, basically. I'm only using it really for the placement of the trees and the colors. Sometimes I get really good photos out of, I use a stable diffusion build, and sometimes I get photos that I want to copy really close. But this one, not really. I just like the colors. I liked the kind of blue-green colors. and it had some artifacts that kind of look like fireflies. So I was like, I'm going to try to do that. I don't know if the fireflies are going to make it into this one or not. I guess it depends on how the trees are. Because if I add fireflies, I kind of want to add some like reflected light onto the trees, which could look really good, or I could ruin things. But then again, it is an acrylic painting, so if I ruin something, I can just paint over it. So I should really just YOLO it, to use your vernacular. All right, I gotta do something. I think I gotta add a branch coming out of this. Gotta do something. It's just looking too empty. Try not to do too much with this round. What happened to the moon? Well, the moon I painted in one pass with a big brush, and I didn't spend too much time on it. I could improve the moon, but I sort of like the look it has, where it's kind of hazy. I don't know if that's the right word. It's very impressionistic. I mean, it's just a splotch of white paint is what it is. Which I'm doing the impressionism thing, so pay extra for that, But I could be convinced to do some work on the moon. I'm not opposed. All right, I need to get off of this brush. It's too big. I need to start painting some branches. You know what I really need is a long-handled liner brush. That way I don't have to hold it so close to the painting. Oh no. No, I didn't kill the moon. The moon stays. I like the moon. I like it. It's got some texture to it because I put it on kind of crazy impasto. So impasto is when you put the paint on real thick and it's got a three-dimensionalness to it. That's fancy painter talk for I put it on real thick. Yeah. Unfortunately, not an encyclopedia yet. I'm still sort of a beginner. But I do know some things. I know a little bit. And just like knowing some words in painting can help you, because looking at like different techniques is helpful for learning. But hey, thanks for watching and thanks for commenting. 4:55 a.m. That's bad for you to be up that late. Go to bed. Yeah, with luck, by the time I'm 60 years old, I'll be painting masterpieces. Or I'll have picked up underwater basket weaving because I got bored of painting. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, boy, go to bed. I know I ain't your mom or nothing, but 5 in the morning, get some sleep. All right, what now? Let's see. I got to do something about these guys over here. Well, gotta do what you gotta do, man. You know what my cousin told me when I said I was live streaming the paintings is he said people are gonna watch them just to relax, put them on in the background. So I'm happy to be the background noise too. I think my primary goal was to try and get people interested and show them that painting isn't as hard as you know people in art colleges or whatever would have you believe. And I'm living proof of that. I only been painting a year, and I'm not saying my paintings are great or anything, but they're serviceable, and I like them. And most of the people I show them to, I get pretty positive feedback. So, well, thanks. Glad you like them. I'll tell you, there's a thing called the artist's curse, which sounds so pretentious and lame, but I got to tell you, it's a real psychological phenomenon, and I think it's especially kind of difficult to deal with impressionistic paintings because they don't look realistic. So, I mean, your metric for when your painting is good, if it's a realist painting, it's whether or not it looks real. But with Impressionism, the bandwidth for what's a good painting and what's a bad painting is a little more arbitrary. And I mean, your painting can look like nothing or it can look like something. And so whether or not it's good is a little bit more arbitrary. So the artist's curse is just kind of when you're painting something, you feel like you're the worst painter ever until it's done. And then you show it to people and they're like, oh, that's a great painting. And you say, it is. And it sounds like, you're just being, humble or something like that. But honestly, it's a real psychological thing where I get a little bit nervous when I start painting because I'm like, man, what if the painting's no good? And while you're doing it, you're like, oh man, this painting's no good. But there's usually a time about, 3/4 point of the painting when it starts to come together and it starts to come to life a little bit. Because when it first starts, and you're just starting your very first brushstrokes, it really don't look real impressive. So you got to kind of get through that bit. Spray bottle is in my way. It's a bit like imposter syndrome, yeah. That's definitely a similar sensation where you feel like you don't belong, feel like your work isn't as good as other people's work, because they tell you when you're an artist not to compare yourself to other people, but like, come on, who's not comparing themselves to other people? That's nonsense. Of course I'm comparing myself to other people. I'm looking at other people's paintings and saying, wow, their paintings are really great. And I'm trying to get inspiration from their stuff too. If I see a painting that I really like, I try to take something from it. I think, wow, I really like the way they used, that dark blue color in contrast with that light red color. Or I see somebody and they paint a sky with like a special kind of smudge, and I'm like, ah, maybe I should try that kind of smudge. So it's all about learning and trying to get stuff better. And I gotta say, some of the advice I've heard for imposter syndrome is the best advice I heard is have a stack of undeniable proof. If you're worried about whether or not you belong into a group, have a stack of undeniable proof that you do belong into a group. Say, painting, for instance. If you're saying that you don't belong as a painter, you're not a real artist, and yet your desk is covered in artwork that your friends and family say is great, and they say you're getting better all the time, at a certain point, you're lying to yourself if you say you're not a painter. So that's my take on that. Can't be lying to yourself. But you know, you always got to be humble too. I try to be modest in my paintings, even when I think I did a really good job. I've done a commission that I haven't posted. That's my favorite painting that I've done. It's an autumn scene. It was for a friend of mine. And I used to live in the mountains, and so she asked me to paint her a painting that reminded me of where I used to live. And so I gave her a painting of a mountain range that's got some autumn colors. I'll post it maybe one of these days. But that painting I have yet to match. I have yet to match that painting. I think, you know, every artist is trying to paint their greatest piece, right? And I haven't beaten that one yet. That one almost felt like a fluke at the time. Because looking at it, it's a good one. At least I think it's a good one. Like I say, I try to be modest. All right, these branches looking a little better now. I'm feeling less antsy about them. Well, now that you're excited to see it, I'm going to have to post it. Let the cat out of the bag. Should have just never mentioned it, and then no one would know I painted a painting that I like. I could keep on saying all my paintings are bad. Not that I would say that, because I get tired of people like that, you know? You don't want to be the person that's always down on themselves. But you also don't want to be cocky. Everything's a balance that way. Oof, I messed up that branch. That is a fine line. That's a conversation I've had many times. Is you can't fake courage. Is basically what I've heard, and I agree with that. You can't fake courage, because if you're pretending to be courageous, you're being courageous. If you're pretending to be brave, you're not pretending, you're being brave. You know, if a lion is about to eat you and you put up your fisticuffs and punch the lion, even though you were terrified, it doesn't matter if you're terrified, you punch the lion. That's pretty brave. So there's a fine line between courage, which kind of has well, let me put it this way. What's downstream of courage is your confidence. So if you're overconfident, you're cocky, but if you're the perfect amount of, you know, confident, you're usually a person people want to talk to. And I definitely struggle with that because I'm a little bit modest. Yeah, well, I don't know if I recommend going fisticuffs with a lion. That was sort of a metaphor there. But if you do punch a lion, did you film that? I want to see it. I don't want to see the aftermath of that, but I do want to see just the part where you punch the lion. I don't really want to see the part where he eats you after you punch him. I imagine that would be sort of gruesome. Yeah, this is, I definitely don't recommend punching your local wildlife, though I imagine lions are probably not local, but pay the lion to upload the first time, yeah. I'm sure the lion's got a Twitter account. Give him my details so he can follow me and watch me paint. I'll do a portrait or something. I've never done a portrait. I should do that. I should do a portrait of a lion. I gotta do that from life, though. You're not a real painter until you've painted a portrait of a lion in plein air. That's how you graduate. Yeah, you know, that's a big problem. I think it's definitely, there's a fine line for me when I'm doing a painting between when I'm doing damage and when I'm making improvements. And with Impressionism, I think if you can't tell whether or not you're making improvements or not, you're done. You're done. Stop right there, right then and there. And it can be kind of hard to pull yourself away sometimes. I've noticed that for me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe if I just add a little more here, a little more there. With Impressionism, you're trying to capture the impression of the scene. You're just trying to show people, you're trying to invoke a specific feeling from people, or you're trying to show them something. And at a certain point, you're giving them more information than they really need. So yeah, I mean, if you make a huge mistake, you should probably fix it. But if you're piddling away and you're piddling away, and you just can't tell if you're making any improvements anymore, you keep stepping back and it looks the same to you, I'd say it's probably about time to stop. Because, I mean, at that point, you're not going to make any improvements. You're not going to make any significant improvements, you know what I mean? You might improve it, maybe a little bit, but it's not worth the time that you're spending on it. So that's kind of my advice, but that only really applies to sort of a looser style of painting. Sorry, I just saw that tree needs a shadow. Some dry brushy shadows in there. Oh, this one needs a shadow too. Give him one. That was a bad shadow. Give him a better one. Yeah, it's better. Okay, I need to fix this tree a little bit more, but I think I'm mostly satisfied with the top of it. Mostly satisfied with the top of it. I don't know what else I want to add to it, which means I should probably not. One day I want to request a painting with rain and drizzling. I'll tell you, my favorite weather is like right before a thunderstorm where the pressure is really low and it's dark, but it's not, you can see everything very clearly. So I really want to do a plein air painting, wait for that weather and do a plein air painting right before it's about to rain. But then I'm going to end up doing a painting in the rain. So, which is actually possible. I've heard that if you use oil, you can get away with that. You can do a painting in the rain. But to do them with drizzling, that's interesting. I'm sure that you could do a lot of, you can use a lot of different techniques to get that effect. There's a painter on Twitter that I stopped following because he just reposted his same paintings over and over again. But he had a really excellent style where he would only paint, not only, but he would primarily paint paintings that were rainy scenes. And he had this one painting that was like a picture from the inside of his car, of his windshield. And he painted all the little water droplets on the windshield, real impressionist-like. And I mean, it was perfect. You could get just the glint of the glint of his dashboard in his car. You could see the instruments, like his fuel gauge and that kind of stuff. It was just, it's impressionistics. They were just blobs of color, but I mean, you could tell what was going on. I really liked that painting. But I wish I knew his name. I'd tell you to go look him up. Yeah, he had some really excellent paintings. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd like to do some rainy paintings. I'd dig me some rainy weather. Okay, I'm trying to blend the tree into the base of these leaves here. Does it rain often? I would say yeah. I get rain at least, you know, a couple times a month, surely. It's getting to be about the season where we're going to see a lot of thunderstorms. You know, you'll get a thunderstorm at least once a month. That's usually in the sort of July and August time frame. For me, I'll get a lot of that. So I'm kind of excited for that. You know, as sort of like morbid as it sounds, when I was a kid and there would be tornado warnings or whatever, I always thought that was exciting because I live in an area that just doesn't really get inclement weather. So when I was a kid, I always thought that it would be exciting to be in a tornado, but now I imagine it's just inconvenient for everybody when the same thing with snow. It's like when I was a kid, I was always waiting for it to snow. But now that I'm an adult, I'm like, man, if there's snow, I got to drive in it. It's just painful. I'd rather it not snow, or maybe just snow like when it's Christmas and I'm off. You know, I don't want it to snow. I don't want it to snow just whenever. All right, I'm gonna put some highlights on this tree. I think some kind of green bits in there. But yeah, I mean, I was sort of I wish I had painted more in autumn. I actually only got 2 paintings done in the entire season of autumn, which I guess is basically like October. Be a good pink, but I don't know. I struggle mixing pinks, so I tend to sort of avoid them. And my favorite spring colors would be like the pinks and purples of sort of like budding trees. And I sort of cheated, last week or 2 weeks or whatever. I did a painting that was sort of a white blooming tree, which yeah, that's cheating. I was painting a white tree, but really my favorite it would be like the pink and purple sort of trees. I don't know what they call them. I guess crepe myrtle, I think is what they call them. I can't remember. I need to brush up on my botany if I'm going to be a landscape painter so I can explain trees properly. You know, trees and bushes, so I can tell you, yeah, that's a coniferous tree or whatever the words are. I don't know the words. I'm trying to be kind of subtle with these highlights here. Missed a lot. That's all right. You didn't miss much, just me rambling about not knowing what trees are. I know what trees are, I just don't know how to identify them very well. If you pointed me to a dogwood tree, I'd be hard pressed to point it out. Well, that's true. Tree is tree. But say I want to paint a specific kind of tree and I can't find a reference photo of it, you know? It would help to know like what the name of the tree is. Like maybe it's an azalea bush or something. I know there's a thing called an azalea bush, but I don't know what it is. Maybe if I need to find an azalea bush sometime, I'll just call up my pals and have them send me pictures of azalea bushes. I don't know what an azalea bush is, so I'd be hard pressed to ask for one if I wanted one. All right, let me get some more gray green in there. Just grain it up with some white. And I think I'm going to throw a little bit of red in there to dull it. Just a pinch. I think I'm going to try and add some sort of streaky bits in here. Oh, that's maybe too much. Let me dry brush some of this. So here's where the acrylic, I like landscape paintings. That's just what my that's the kind of painting that I like, you know. I think what'll get, I mean, if you want to get yourself to hate painting, do paintings that you don't like, you know. I try to only do paintings that I like, because if you want to sit down and look at something for 6 hours, it ought to be something you're interested in. So if you're interested in drawing fantasy, you ought to draw fantasy. If you're interested in drawing anatomy, you ought to draw anatomy. If you're interested in painting portraits, you ought to paint portraits. That way you're not going to lose interest in painting because somebody told you that you're supposed to study how to draw the face. Like, I don't know how to draw a face because I don't want to draw faces. I want to draw trees and stuff. All right. I don't know what else I want to do to this painting because I lack it. To make it just a little green. I don't really think fireflies are yellow. I think they're kind of green. The light is a little bit green, I think. Some white in there. I'm trying to paint fireflies. That's what I'm trying to paint. I wonder, is that my connection or yours? I hope it's not mine. I was deliberating on the color of a firefly's light, and I think it's a bit on the green side. But I don't want too much green. I think that'll do it there. So I think what I'm going to try to do is put one like right here. Let me amp him up a little bit. I'm going to say it's you then and be hopeful. All right, I'm going to add some glow. Some Firefly glow. Like so. Just dry brushing some yellow on there. And then I'm going to put a firefly on there. He's a little bit too dotty. I want him to be more like a wisp. A bit like that, I think. Question is, do we continue on that path and add more fireflies? It's a good question. I think I'm going to try. I tried giving it some contrast. Just adding some darks around it to make it pop a little more. It's a legal maneuver. But I'll probably go back through and look through this one to see if I'm cutting out or anything. Oh, with the... I'm going to take a step back and see what I think about the Firefly and whether or not I want to add more. Yeah, you know, these are interesting ideas here. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go with what you're saying. He's gotta have buddies. He's gotta have buddies. Oh, I biffed that color. That ain't no good. Just a tiny bit of blue. Just a touch of blue in there. All right. I'm gonna do some more of that dry brushing. So again, I'm just taking like basically all the paint out of the brush until there's just like a little bit. And then I think we got to put one like up in here. So I'm just kind of scrubbing. And just like that, we get a little bit of a glow there. And then just take some straight cad yellow. Just put a little dot. That's all I'm doing. I've just invented this technique. It's called, I don't know. I'm going to do that again. Let's see, we got to put one somewhere. I'm right up here. That added some nice contrast on that guy. Let's get one over here. That one's a little small. Well, he is up there, so I guess he should be small. Put one over here. All right, I think I want to add. Yeah, just a little bit of blue. They're not quite, it's not quite yellow, you know, it's got a little bit of green in it, but I guess since it doesn't really matter that much because since I'm dry brushing it, it's kind of blending in with the blue behind it, which is making it green anyway. So I probably didn't have to worry about it too much, but couldn't hurt. I don't want to overdo it with the fireflies. I don't want to overdo it with them. But I tell you, I do want to, well, what do I want to do? Maybe add some more dark bits into the grass. Just add some slightly darker bits in there. Give it a little bit more contrast. So we're getting closely to dabble in other hobbies. You know, the painting thing is weird because I was just like up late, not unlike yourself, one night, and I just like decided I wanted to try and paint something just sort of out of nowhere. It was really random, and I wasn't like, to be honest, I've never been into art in my life, and it took everybody that I knew kind of by surprise because they were like, "Really, you paint stuff?" But just one night, I painted a camel. I painted a camel just randomly, and it was a digital painting. I did it on Procreate, which is like an app. It's an iPhone app. And I had played around with Procreate before doing like image editing and like kind of Photoshop-y type stuff. So I know how to use it, but I never actually tried to paint anything. And I just like decided one day I was going to paint a camel out of nowhere. in the middle of the night, and I just like spent the entire night painting a really bad camel. Oh, there's a question. 2 jars of water. One is dirtier than the other one. So basically, I wipe my brush off, then go into the dirtier water, and then if I really want like clean water, then I go into the clean water. One of them's like just dirtier. That's the only difference. But anyway, I was talking about camels. Yeah, I painted a really bad camel, just kind of randomly, but I really enjoyed myself while I was doing it. And it came out a lot better than I thought it would. You know, like I thought that if I, having no painting experience, you know, I didn't even look up any YouTube videos for how to do it. I just like busted out the pen and just kind of played. And it just sort of like worked out. I mean, it's not a good painting by any stretch of the imagination. And it's a lot worse than what I currently do. But, you know, for like a first painting, it was actually pretty decent. I've got it like framed. My sister has it. I don't have any pictures of it, so you're out of luck for the camel painting. That's sort of what happened, actually. So, I mean, it just sort of struck out of nowhere. I decided I was going to be a person that painted things. It was a camel. Power move now. I don't know, staying up in the middle of the night painting a camel did not feel like a power move at the time. It felt like a poor choice because the next day I imagine I was very tired. But it definitely created some good things. My life was improved by the camel painting. Because now I sort of have my own way of entertaining myself, which is, you know, that doesn't really sound like much, but it's kind of a lot. I mean, if you think about it, I used to be sort of dependent on other people to entertain me in the sense that, you know, I was waiting for TV shows to come out. You know, they'd give you an announcement like, hey, they're making the next movie. And I would be like, oh, cool, I'll see that movie. And then I would see it and I'd be disappointed by it. And so now if I'm disappointed, it's my own fault. Because if the painting's bad, then it's on me. I'm just adding random stuff now to give some texture to the bottom of this painting. We're getting to that point where I don't really think I'm adding very much. I think I'm going to try and do some stuff with the liner brush. I'm going to add some grassy looking textures. But yeah, if you're interested in painting, try it, man. If you're interested in any kind of artwork, just do it. Does it matter which is dirty? Wouldn't you want it to always be clean? So yeah, I mean, ideally, I would want them both to be clean. If I could just have clean water forever, I would do that. But, you know, every time you put paint in the water, it gets dirtier and dirtier. So I'll show you here for comparison. I don't know if you can really tell. Can you tell if I put them over here? Well, no, not really. That's too bad. It doesn't really show up on camera, but this water is very cloudy. You can kind of see it's like kind of a black color. That's not the reflection. It's actually that kind of dull black color. This water is clear. This water. So if I'm going into a really intense color, say if I want like what I was doing the fireflies, I washed my brush in the clean water, so I wasn't getting any of the dark, you know, water, you know, the muddy water into the mix. It's more important when you're doing like a watercolor painting. You know, I'm just not the kind of person that can sit in my room and paint a painting while talking to, you know, basically nobody. I mean, right now I'm talking to you, but for the past like 4 or 5 live streams, I've been talking to maybe like 1 or 2 viewers that are silent. So I'm basically sitting in a room talking to myself. So I wouldn't be able to do that if I wasn't, in my own place, in my own space, doing my own things. So for me, I think that was part of it too, is I didn't really know like what to do with my time. So, being able to be alone and try things, that's been kind of helpful for me. Okay, what was I doing? Oh, yeah. So what I'm doing right now is just painting some holes with black paint. I'm doing what the pros call the negative painting, which is just putting darks in so that it's painting the dark spots instead of the light spots. That's all it means. So if you paint like where there isn't grass, grass will sort of appear. And I mean, it's not going to be, I'm not painting real detailed or anything, but if you paint kind of dark spots in the grass, you'll sort of see some grass appear. Because your brain's trying to fill stuff in, When you're looking at stuff, when you're looking at anything, your brain is sort of tricking you a lot of the time. Whenever you're looking at something two-dimensional that looks three-dimensional, that's your brain tricking you. So this is one of those things where your brain sees all the little dark spots versus the light spots, and it says, oh, that's grass. Even though it really doesn't, if you looked at it close, it doesn't really look like grass. Yeah, there's some water in that paint. I can get it flowing a little easier. See, I like this, I don't know, that made the grass come alive a little bit when you added the darks in there. Just a little bit. And then if you really want it to come alive, you can add some highlights in there. That'll make it really pop. Let's do some of that. There's some yellow greens in there. Just a little bit of blue. Oh, that was too much blue. I don't know if that's going to be, that's probably not light enough. Need to wash my brush better. Huh. Godspeed, I say to you. Yeah, I imagine if you're missing a lot, I'm hoping that this will get recorded nicely. You can watch it back if you missed things. There we go, that's better. Let's get some of that in there. It's a little bit transparent. Let me get some more, a little more green in there and a little more paint in general. A little more of that yellow in there. A little too yellow. That's good. A little bit of a dirty yellow, I guess. Yeah, I didn't. I just saw this just now. What is that? Did I like make a goof? What is that thing? Oh, you know what it was? That was the beginning of the tree. I was gonna make it like way thicker and I just didn't. That's what that is. I just left it in there. It's like just a random stick poking out. I don't know, what do I want to do with that? I can't make it into a branch. Random stick. I guess I'm gonna have to do something with it. Make it into like, maybe it's a fence. I don't know what it is. I make it into a tree. It's like a little baby tree. Need more paint. Really goofed leaving this. Just random weird looking tree back here. I'm quiet. I'm focusing on fixing this tree. It's putting up a fight. It's not thick enough over here, I think. More paint. I'm out of brown. I don't really want to mix anymore because I don't want to get out anymore because I'm almost done with this thing. So I'm mixing my. This is a disaster. This tree showed up and wrecked my day. Thought I was going to have a nice, calming, relaxing painting. Here's this clown messing me up. This random tree that appeared out of nowhere. I certainly didn't paint him half an hour ago and completely forget about him. I don't know where he's supposed to be in space. I'm not really worried about it. We're just going to let him exist where he pleases. All right, I don't know if there's anything else I want to do to this thing. Let me step back away from it for just a minute and assess things again. Now that I've made lots of tiny errors. By tiny errors, I mean painted an ugly tree right there. See one thing. I want that to be a little darker is all. Add a little bit back here. Get some separation, I think. I need more of that, actually. Give him a little bit of a shadow back in there. Let me think. Try to brush some leaves over there. See what else I want to do. I don't know if I want to do anything else. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it. Just say it's done. I think I could add more detail in this front tree if I wanted to. But I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. Because if I try to add too much more, I'm gonna end up with more of those things in there. Plus, it's getting late. This is my second job, so to speak, so I do have to be awake for my 9 to 5. All right, let's see. I don't really think I can give you a close-up of this one because this is about as close as you're going to get. I'll give you one tip for how to preserve this because I didn't use a lot of yellow, white, or red. So there's a little bit of that that's, you know, sort of could be wasted. I just saw this branch back here that was looking very plain. It's in the back, so nobody will see him, but didn't quite look right to me. Looks slightly better, but really could probably still use some work. I'm gonna stop touching. That's what we got. This guy here. I'll post a 4K so you can see a little bit better. Because there's a little bit of fidelity that gets lost in the 1080p, I think. I mean, maybe it's just because I look at them pretty close and the 1080p is a little bit farther away, so you don't see everything. But you get the gist. And that's the impressionist way, right? As long as you get the gist. It's pretty much dry too. So I'll probably varnish this tomorrow. And either it'll probably get hung up somewhere because I like it. But anyway, oh, you're back just in time for me to leave. It's tragic. But I'll be back again. I'm trying to do these. The last couple of weeks have been sort of crazy for me, but I'm going to try to get these at a more even time. I've been doing them Monday and Thursday. I'm going to stick with the Monday and Thursday. But I'm going to try to get the times a little bit more standard. So it seemed like I've been doing it kind of anywhere from 5 p.m. Eastern to, 8 p.m. Eastern at the latest. I'm going to try and hit somewhere. I'm going to try to shoot for like 7:30 Mondays and Thursdays. I'm going to try and do them 2 a week. So it'll either be a 2-parter like this one was, or it'll be 2 different paintings, or maybe you'll get 3 paintings if I do a 2-fer or something. So yeah, that's what I got for today. Thanks for the interesting conversation. And thanks for watching the painting. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to close it out.